Started here. And I want to thank everyone who has devoted a good chunk of a beautiful day in western Montana to an act of citizenship in coming here to learn about and to discuss our Constitution. I also want to thank the Sanders County Democratic Party for putting this event together. I don't know if you can piece out from the introduction, but the time I served in office, unlike my colleagues here, was as a Democrat. But I am especially pleased that the county party has gone out of its way to make this not a partisan event. I have to say that I have, even as a Democrat, been very wary from the beginning of our celebration of the 50th anniversary. I've been wary of any effort to somehow make the celebration or the defense of the Constitution a partisan matter. The Constitution is far too important to be one more round in the culture wars or the tribal tournament that we have become so accustomed to. It's clearly not as warring tribes that we can best decide how to structure our institutions and practices of self-government. For that kind of discussion, we have to call on what Abraham Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. I think that's especially true now because we have entered and for some time been living in a time of deep and bitter division within our body politic. Deeper than I've experienced in over 50 years of various kinds of public service. And I think it's helpful to think of the Constitution as not only not a partisan matter, but as the strongest bulwark that we have to help us get through such periods of deep division and to find out how we can continue to do a good job of governing ourselves in spite of our divisions. And just to illustrate the divisions, I'm going to mention a couple of things that have now become public issues that I think would have been almost unimaginable 50 years ago. And I'm going to put these in stark and somewhat provocative terms, not because I want to take sides, but because I want us to think about how fierce the divisions have become in our state. So we have public issues now unimaginable then. For example, we are debating issues about boys wanting to become girls and play on girls' basketball teams. Now, to a lot of people, that just doesn't make sense. It's not the world they thought they were being born into. On the other hand, we've got people who think that citizens should be able to bring military-style assault weapons to public meetings, along with enough ammunition to do away with everyone at the meeting. Both of those situations might be framed in terms of rights that are guaranteed or protected by the Montana Constitution. But I want to invite us to think about the Constitution in very different terms for a minute or two. I want us to think of it primarily as an instrument whereby people who hold vastly different ideas and hold them passionately still attempt to govern themselves. Now, there are various ways that such a people might constitute themselves. They might put in place a strict and unvarying rule of majority domination. And certainly majority rule is a major element in the Montana Constitution. So we're now at a point in our history when one party has acquired not only a majority, but pretty close to overwhelming majority. Why would that party not use that situation in order to do anything it can to keep itself in power? And as someone who has served in the legislature in both the minority and the majority, I want to say that there are built-in motivations for a party to do just that. That the motivations behind party, no matter which party it is, will naturally lead to some consideration of using that temporary majority to make it more than a temporary majority. But there are a couple of reasons that I want to suggest that not be the course that we go down, but I offer this as sort of a caution for both Democrats and Republicans. For Democrats, I would remind us that the legislature can't amend the Constitution. only the people can amend the Constitution. The legislature can put issues forward for the people to consider. And I'll say that I've been a little concerned that sometimes the Democrats in Montana have come across as being against any issue being raised with the Constitution. Well, as Maynard pointed out, the Constitution itself provides for ways of having it amended. And as the Democratic Party, surely we have to have some faith that if issues are put before the people, that the good sense of the people will ultimately prevail. And so I would caution Democrats about coming across as being just steadfastly against any consideration of any changes. But I also would urge Republicans to resist the temptation to use the amendment process to solidify their own power in the state, and that for a couple of reasons. First of all, majorities are ephemeral things. They don't last forever. My own political experience is an example of that. I moved from being minority leader to speaker because the Republicans lost what was then their majority. But more important, I think, is that legislators have obligations beyond party. They undoubtedly very often, and I know they do, feel some obligation of loyalty to party. But if we I suggested that Democrats think about the word that stands behind their party's name, democracy, belief in the people. Republicans also have inherited a name for their party. In fact, some Republicans make a point of saying we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Well, what is a republic? A republic from the outset was not a monarchy. That's what a republic was a form of government in which the people are in control. But more than that, from the outset, Republican principles rested on the idea that a republic is based on certain ways of treating each other, certain civic virtues on which self-government rests. We have come to a point in our history where it's become more and more difficult for us to keep track of those civic virtues. I just read about a protest at Stanford Law School, where Stanford Law School students wouldn't let a Trump-appointed federal judge speak. Now, that is based on what to my mind is the opposite of civic virtues. Civic virtues would acknowledge that we all have something to learn by listening intently, even to people that we disagree with. We have come to the place where we have almost elevated the idea of contempt to a position of privilege within our public discourse. We can't run a self-governing organization on contempt. Contempt is not a civic virtue. The fact is, though, that in so many ways, we have built in the operation of contempt into our very system. One of the ways we've done it is to free to eliminate so many of the limits on campaign finance. When you allow unlimited amounts of money to be spent in campaigns, one of the effects of that is that there's too much money. There's no way that money can be spent to persuade people of the merits of the candidates. And so all the extra money is steered into negative campaigning. And what you end up with is a question of which candidate do voters hate the most? And that was really clear in the 2016 election. Very few people were voting for a candidate. Lots of people were voting against the candidate they had come to hold the most contempt for. And the situation with campaign finance has just made that worse and worse. Well, what's the alternative then? I think we need to look at those old Republican virtues. And my favorite quote on that score is from the first president of the Czech Republic after the republic freed itself from Soviet domination. Václav Havel was talking about what it would take to make democracy work in his home country. And he said this: of course, I don't know whether directness, truth, and the democratic spirit will succeed. But I do know how not to succeed, which is by choosing means that contradict the ends. In other words, if there is to be any chance at all of success, there is only one way to strive for decency, reason, responsibility, sincerity, civility, and tolerance, and that is decently, reasonably, responsibly, sincerely, civilly, and tolerantly. I'm gonna turn this microphone over in just a minute to Governor Roscoe, who, in my opinion, lives those words of Václav Havel every time he speaks and every time he writes. It's those words that I think represent the public thing that the word republic stands for. It is what we hold together that holds us together. And I'm glad that Doug recited the preamble for us, because to my mind, and I urge you to revisit that preamble, read it carefully, word by word, and see if it doesn't reflect exactly what we as Montanans hold together, that holds us together. I am so grateful to Maine Ann and my old friend Bob Campbell for putting those words down and for reminding us of who we are as a people. We are a grateful people, proud to be Montanans, and your being here this afternoon just reinforces for me that pride in our state